Hello, let me say happy Memorial Day to all of my family and friends on Facebook. Today is a day here in America that we have set aside that we honor our men and women, our soldiers and sailors who died in combat during the numerous wars that we fought here in America. As you all can see, I'm out in a public park. This is Perkins Park in Warren, Ohio, which is my father's hometown. I was born in Youngstown, Ohio, which is about a half hour away. But I usually try to come here every year for Memorial Day. I like to pay my respects to the soldiers and sailors, also to my uncle. As you can see, we're still practicing safe behaviors because of the Corona 19 virus. There were a few cases here in Warren, which is Trumbull County. So I'm just playing it safe. I'm looking like a ghetto Sub-Zero or Scorpion out here for those of you who like watching Mortal Kombat. So I hope everyone can hear me. This is my book mask. You know, I'm a huge lover of books. That's one of my favorite things to talk about and to buy. So I got my book mask on here. So I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm going to keep it on. I'm not going to take it off. But you can just get the gist of what I'm talking about. But as I said a moment ago, this is Memorial Day. Technically, I did this video on Saturday, but I'm going to post it on Monday, which is today, in honor of Memorial Day. And I just want to talk just for a few minutes because y'all know I'm a big history buff and I love talking about history and different things that have taken place in history and things that, you know, I've learned over the years. And the thing with Memorial Day, I've heard people say this before, and it's not a bad thing. People just don't know the difference. But, you know, we have Memorial Day followed by Veterans Day, and some people kind of get confused with the two. Well, Veterans Day is the day that we celebrate all the people that have served in the military. Like people like me, I served in the Navy and as the Army as well. So we celebrate those and we pay tribute. People say thank you for your service and things like that. Memorial Day, which is what we're celebrating today, this is the day that we honor all of our men and women who were killed in combat or while they served in the military. So these are the people who never made it back home. As they say, they made the ultimate sacrifice and they paid the ultimate price. And so we take a day and just set it aside where we honor those who gave it all, gave their lives for this country that we live in, or you know, most of my Facebook friends. That's my friends over in Africa and Australia. You might have heard of us Americans celebrate Memorial Day, and I'm sure you guys have certain holidays over there that you celebrate where you honor the veterans and the people who served in your militaries. And the reason why I say I like to share information that I've learned, there was a piece that was on Facebook a couple of years ago, and I've seen it pop up every year around this time. And it says that former slaves were the ones who actually started the Memorial Day celebration. And I'm like, okay, so I wanted to look into that and check the information for myself. And I did find out that that information is true. What had happened, I'm just going to walk around a little bit, let y'all see a little bit of the memorial that they have here in Warren. They pretty much celebrate all of the soldiers that fought from World War I, World War II, Desert Storm, Vietnam, of course the Civil War, which is how it got started. But as I was saying a moment ago, you probably heard the rumor or the explanation that it was former slaves who started the Memorial Day tradition. Well, this is true. What had happened back in 1996, there was a Yale professor by the name of David Blight, and he was doing research on Memorial Day, and he ran across some information that said during the Civil War in Charleston, South Carolina, there was a spot, and it was called the Washington Race Course and Jockey Club in Charleston, South Carolina, where the Confederate soldiers, they turned this race course and this race camp into a prison where they was holding Union soldiers that they had captured. And they had, of course, they had slaves there that was working, and of course, maybe slaves that served in the Union Army. Well, unfortunately, because of the conditions, I'm sure many of you heard stories about the conditions of the Civil War. There was a lot of diseases, infection, dysentery, consumption. So a lot of the soldiers weren't dying actually in combat. They were just dying fighting off diseases. And so what had happened was 260 Union soldiers died just from infections from being there in this camp down in Charleston, South Carolina. So the Confederate soldiers, they didn't like build no graves to bury the soldiers deep. No, they just made like one big pit and just put all of the dead soldiers in there. And they said, okay, we're done with them. Well, after the war had ended and the word that came out that the Confederate soldiers can go home, they just kind of left the slaves and the former slaves there at the campground there in Charleston. So what they decided to do, the former slaves that was there, they wanted to give the Union soldiers a proper burial. So they, I think the word is resumed or assumed the bodies out of the ground and made a proper burial. Dug some proper deep graves and put the soldiers in, and had like a memorial service. Well, after everything was said and done, the people of Charleston, a lot of the former slaves, a lot of the blacks that were free, they decided they was going to hold a memorial there at the racetrack in Charleston for the Union soldiers. So the report that Dr. Blight found out was like 10,000 former slaves and missionaries came out and they paid tribute to the Union soldiers that died during the Civil War. And they said there was like 3,000 kids there, school-age kids, and they was walking around with bouquets of flowers. And, reports were that they was decorating the grave sites. And this is why sometimes you might hear Memorial Day also being described as Decoration Day. And this is the day a lot of times people will visit the cemeteries of their loved ones and those that have died in combat, and they'll decorate with flowers and they'll clean off the graves. So you might hear Decoration Day and then you might hear Memorial Day. They're both pretty much the same holiday. But yes, the report was, and it's been confirmed, that the day was first recognized by blacks, or shall we call them freed slaves. And so down through the years, 'cause usually when something is discovered in history, they got to fact check, they got to double check, they got to check with historians. And many of the people in Charleston said, well, they never heard of this story. They didn't know anything about it. Well, you have to remember the South, they was already bitter about the Civil War, losing it. Plus, they don't want to give any credit to former slaves, recognizing, soldiers that were killed, white soldiers, or for that matter, that were killed, in Charleston. So everything was just kind of buried in history. But there are a couple of books that are out, to my understanding, that document this part of history. And so, just as our ancestors did back in 1865, I want to do the same thing, kind of, pay tribute and memorialize. And earlier you heard me talking about the park here in Warren, Ohio. Well, they have a bench that I'm sitting on right now. And for those of you that are on my page on Facebook, it's a Jared thing you wouldn't understand. You probably recognize this bench because I have a t-shirt draped across this bench. Well, this is what the city of Warren did. This is why whenever I talk about Youngstown, Ohio, which is my hometown, I talk about Warren. This is my dad's hometown, and this is where my grandfather lived at. So this is, I'm looking down here, but as you can see, they have a plaque, and it's dedicated to my uncle, Michael Jarrett. He died in the Navy. This was, I believe, 1975, 1976. I can't remember the exact date. But the city of Warren, they were kind enough to memorize my uncle. About a year or two ago, they had a ceremony here where they had his picture and his name, and they dedicated a memorial to him also. So this is why I want to pay my respects to the city for all that they've done for my family. Matter of fact, a few weeks ago for graduation season, someone had paid me to take some senior pictures, and they said I could just pick any school that I want. So in honor of my dad, and also in honor of my uncle, Michael Jarrett, I picked their high school. I think it's down here. You can see Warren G. Harding High School, Kilt in action. So shouts out to all of the class of 2020 graduates, especially all 15 of the young people that came out to take pictures. We stressed it out over a 3-day period, so everybody got their pictures. They were happy. I'm happy. It was a grand occasion. Like I said, I just want to give a shout out to everyone that came and to the city of Warren. Thank you all for acknowledging my uncle and all of those who died in combat. So everybody enjoy their Memorial Day. I thank you all for watching this video. You know, I got my hat on, got my Sankofa. So as you can see, it says knowing your past. So that's one thing that I want to advocate, knowing our past. So any of my family members, my cousin Joe, we talk all the time about history. Any of my other cousins that have the younger generation. If you're ever in Warren, Ohio, you want to stop by the park. It's right here on Mahoning Avenue. It's on High Street and Mahoning Avenue. If you can see the sign behind me, you can just ask anybody where Perkins Park is at, the Veterans Memorial. And so it's a beautiful park. The amphitheater is right behind me. I'm not going to show you that. But at this time, I just want to say thank you guys for checking out this video. What I'm going to do, like I said, since I'm here paying my respects, I'm just going to have a moment of silence for all of our military personnel that died in combat or died in service of our country. All right, thank you guys for checking me out, and I'll talk to you later. Everybody be strong now.